Are you a technician who wants to set yourself apart? Then the Trusted Technician podcast is for you. I'm Derek Hofrichter, coach and trainer at SBE. And on this podcast, we will have experienced HVAC coaches and trainers, as well as top performing technicians, all sharing their tips and strategies to help you be more successful. Everyone, this is Coach Derek with the Trusted Technician podcast. We've got another episode for you guys today. Get into some new topics too, talking specifically about selling systems and being a comfort consultant. And with us as a guest, we have Reyna from Air Specialty in Virginia. Reyna, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's just get started from the beginning. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Obviously being, a woman in HVAC, that's kind of a unique path that you went down. So just tell us a little bit about how you got involved and what you enjoy about working in HVAC.
So I've always been kind of hands-on. We joke that my mom is one of 5 girls, but we used to say she's my grandpa's only boy. And she kind of taught me how to work on things. And she owned a sign business, or she still does, but my whole life. And I was at her shop when I was 18 or 19, and I was working on my car at the time. And she did signs for an HVAC company. And he said that he was trying to get women in the industry. And he asked me if I was interested in coming in for an interview. So I did. And they had the whole, thing where, it was like an internship where they teach you everything, train you, and then, send you off to get certified. And then you ride with a technician for a little bit. They put you in install for a little bit. So that's kind of how I started. And then I wanted to quit. I think 2 months after. It was the middle of August, and it's the first time I ever actually spent time in an attic, and I was like, "This is absolutely crazy. I don't want to do this." And my mom was like, "No, he's a customer of mine, and you are not going to quit." So I stuck with it, and I kept noticing the comfort advisors, the sales guys in there, and I was like, "I want that position." He's like, "You got to learn a lot more to get to that." And that was 15 years ago. But I stayed with that company for about 7 years, and then been with Air Specialty now for about 7 or so. For the last 2 years, I've been full-time comfort consultant and was selling tech before that for about 3 years.
So you've made the transition of sorts. You were a tech for a while,
Mm-hmm.
then you became a selling tech a
Mm-hmm.
little bit, and now you're full-time focusing on the selling of systems.
Yes.
Okay. So what made you mentioned very early on, you were like, I want that job. What is it about selling systems that you gravitated towards?
I think it was more so just seeing the guys in the office. They didn't have the on-call. Everybody is a technician. What do you hate about being a tech? The number one thing everybody always says is being on call. So I didn't want to do that anymore. And I just seen that, they were always kind of going on vacations and things like that. It's always what you see on the outside because it's totally not like that. But
Grass is greener on the other side of the fence, right?
exactly. Yeah. Now I'm not physically in the field anymore, but I am full-time working more than I ever did. I'm on my phone all the time. But the owner of the company at the time, he was correct in saying a lot of companies want to hire someone that knows nothing about HVAC. But for me, I feel like it actually helps me being a technician first because I can see what works in somebody's house and what doesn't. So if I go into somebody's house that they've got terrible ductwork or they've got humidity issues and things like this, I'm not going to sell them a certain system. I'm only going to sell them what I know is going to be best for their house, and knowing those things because when I was a tech, I would see the things that worked and didn't work.
Yeah, get that. So what are the differences that you feel from being a selling technician versus just being a comfort consultant? Is it different strategies or?
So even though I didn't like the tech side of it anymore, because I've been doing it for so long and the on-call and things like that, I liked being a selling tech better because you have that relationship with your clients already. I had been going to their houses for years, doing maintenance there or repairs there. So they trust you already when you're going to sit down at the table and talk to them about changing out their system if need be. And I feel like as a comfort advisor, you're going into houses where people have already gotten 4 or 5 quotes and they don't really want to hear what you have to say. They want to make a choice and get you out of there. Most of them are like, can you email me? And you have to kind of use the coaching on, no, we're going to make a decision today.
Yeah. And so obviously you're dealing with that, right, as a comfort consultant, but you've sold a lot of systems this year. You've had a pretty solid year on selling systems. So let's start with your whole approach. You know, you're going out there to the house. They potentially have an idea of what systems cost because maybe they've asked around or done some research or had some other bids. So talk us through your approach from the start. What are you trying to do when you're going out there on one of these estimates?
So normally to start, I'm trying to feel out issues that they've had in their house or what they didn't like about their last system to get an idea of what it is that they're looking for. We have a lot of rental properties here and things like that because the military or vacation, resort homes, those people might just want a simple change out. But I try to ask people, how long do you plan on staying here? Is this your forever home? What their power bills are, things like that, to see exactly what it is they're looking for because I'm not gonna sit there and talk about all different types of systems and get them completely confused if it's something that they don't need. So I ask them first on things that might bother them or things that they'd like to know what I should talk to them about when we're talking about the quoting process.
Okay. And let's say it's a theoretical situation. They've had 3 or 4 bids, including one of yours. Do you say that you're typically selling from a position where you're not gonna be the cheapest price for them?
I wouldn't say all the time, no. And if it does get to the point where we are a lot more expensive, I talk to them about the things that were important to them. Okay, humidity was important to you, but we have a single stage system if you're not too worried about the humidity, and that will drop the price down a little bit more if that was not a huge concern. So it really just depends on what really bothers them or not. But for the most part, we're kind of like in the middle of
Yeah,
pricing. There's a lot of one truck companies might come in way less than us, but there's recently I went to one that was $10,000 more than. So it depends on what we're quoting. But in the area I'm in, what I ran into first, probably the first couple months was crazy. We're in flood zone over here, 100-year-old houses, historic neighborhood surrounding us. And we were getting calls about, I want to put HVAC in my house. I've never had it there before. So then I have to deal with floodplain certificates, being in flood zones, how high up off the ground it has to be. So in that case, we are a lot higher than somebody that might not know those ropes that they have to climb, and they might just go in there and quote a system, but then they realize, like, no, we have to elevate it. We have to do this. We have to get asbestos abatement before we do anything. So in those situations, we have been higher, but they know that that's the only way it's going to work. So they've gone with me. It's actually been a joke here between Justin and John that I can sell like $30,000 jobs faster than I can sell a change out. So
that's funny. But why exactly is that? Because I've heard that from some of the other top salespeople for kind of a similar thing, but why do you think that is?
I think some people, they might be deterred on the challenges that it takes to call the city, to deal with all of the, hoops they've got to jump through to get to the point of actually knowing what to quote, that it takes a little bit of time, but that's the part of it that I like, the challenge of it. So I'll sit there and work on something for hours and hours and hours, and then they see that I put the effort into it, where like some other company that went out there to quote them might not have even started the process yet. They're wanting to get it done. They just bought their house. They don't have AC. It's going into summertime or it's going into winter time. They don't have heat. They wanna get the project started, and I've already sent the quote out. So I think it's mostly some people like the change out, which are great. I would love to get a bunch of those too. Since we are in this historic area, I believe I get a lot of those calls where those are what pays my bills, and I like working on those projects too because it's cool to see, like, the before and after pictures. There's no HVAC in the house whatsoever, and then you actually get to have, like, okay, I took a picture of the side of this house and there was nothing there, and then bam, now there's all these units out here and it looks cool. So,
Would you say you have a very high attention to detail?
yes. Sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad.
Well, everything that you're hearing is a pro. This is how you're winning estimates, right? By not being necessarily cheapest price. Because maybe some of the homeowners feel like the bid that they got from other companies was like a copy and paste
Yeah.
type of thing, right? But you're going attention to detail, asking questions, and actually giving them the solution to their problem. So why do you think it is a bad thing sometimes?
because I get too involved with it. So then I can't sleep. I mean, it's a good thing, but then if I know that that job's going in, on Monday, then I'm freaking out about it all weekend, and I'm making sure the right installers are on the job, and I'm making sure that I sent all the pictures and that everything was explained properly. And I give out my personal phone number to the clients, and I don't want to get a phone call where something wasn't right. So I try to stop by as much as I can to check on it. Also, we have a technician that does the quality assurance check, but then they also want me to come back and check things too. Since I was a technician, they want me to check to make sure it was done the way I would have done.
That speaks a lot to the trust that the homeowner is placing in like you specifically. Okay, so we talked about upfront, you're asking a lot of questions. In the middle, you're spending a lot of time doing a lot of research, maybe going the extra mile to make sure that it's the right bid. What are some tips or strategies or thoughts that you have about closing? Because I think it's two different skills, selling and closing. And I think a lot of people are maybe good at the front part, but then they're bad at closing.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on closing?
So since some of these jobs are pretty big jobs, I would like to close them on the spot. But of course, a lot of them are, you got to go back and you got to do a lot of work on it. So what I do is I always ask the client, is it okay if I text you? And a lot of people are better at communicating through text, and they're more inclined to answer their text message than they are a phone call.
Hmm.
So I text them all the time, and I'll text them and just say, "Hey, I've been working on this, and I talked to so and so, and this is what this is," and they feel involved at that point. So I feel that's a lot of the reason why they end up closing with me, because there might be a phone call from another company that they might say, "Hey, are you ready to go ahead with this?" But me, I'm more so like, what else did you want to do? Is this what we were doing on this end? Or do you want to add this? Kind of always keeping in contact with them. And I keep my phone on me 24/7. And if they want to text me at 1 o'clock in the morning, I'll answer a text. So I think really just the communication and making sure I don't lose contact with people is what closes on those bigger jobs or even a change out job.
You're saying it's primarily your follow up.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know for some that could be the root of a lot of their issues is just the lack of consistent follow up or not following up enough. So that's your strategy then is high level, again, attention to detail, but a high level of follow up.
Yeah. The one that I had last week that closed, we were in the middle on that one, and it was probably a $20,000 job and 2 systems. They were just change out, so it wasn't a redesign or anything like that. But she ended up calling me back and said the reason that she went with us, and she did have her company that did her previous house, who was a great company to her. She didn't have any problems with them, and they are actually $300 less than our bid was. But she said that the reason she ended up closing with us was because of going in the attic, taking the measurements, making sure we did the whole thing that we've learned in trainings, taking the videos, had her involved. She was holding the tape measure while I'm taking a video of her measuring the access. And then she ended up telling me the other guy just seemed kind of nonchalant about it. Like, yeah, that'll fit there. And I don't want the installers to hate me. So I tried to make sure that if something's not going to fit, that we're a contractor that can make an access hole bigger or whatnot, to make sure that all these things are talked about beforehand.
That's great. To draw our conversation to a close, if there's some technicians or comfort consultants that are listening and they feel like that's what's holding them back from their goals is their lack of volume on selling systems. Maybe they're great techs with repairs and everything else, but that's really holding them back. What sort of advice would you have for them at various levels of where they're at?
My biggest thing is to not ever get complacent. Even this time of year, everybody's like, oh, this is when you take a break. And this is when, you don't really have to work that hard, or just take a deep breath. And me, nope, I'm going to make a really large purchase. And now I have to figure out how I'm going to pay my bills. And my manager always jokes with me, like, to keep buying things. So you have to keep paying for things and you have to keep working. My thing is really just, I don't sit still. So, when I'm home or whatnot, even if I'm doing something, I've got my phone on me and I'll always stop for when a client calls. I don't ever wait until Monday. I was on vacation for my birthday and they texted me, hey, we told them you're on vacation. We told them you'll call them back next week. And I called them right then and there. It was a 10-minute call, but they ended up closing that weekend. So my biggest thing would just say, take every call that you possibly can, answer every phone call you can, and just keep in contact and never get lazy.
Hustle, right?
Yeah, hustle.
Attention to detail and hustle.
Yeah.
All right, Reyna, thank you so much for joining us on the Trusted Technician podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Trusted Technician podcast. If you would like to learn more about SBE, you can find us online at sbeodyssey.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, we would appreciate it if you would leave us a review. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.